Hello and welcome to Merryvale Vineyards. I am Andrew Wright, the winemaker from Merryvale. Alongside today, Jeff Crawford, the winemaker from Starmont, our sister label. We're here in the historic cask room to discuss some Chardonnay. So we are fortunate to be the proprietors of the historic Stanley Ranch down in Carneros, where Jeff has been making world-class Chardonnays and Pinots for several years. And we have a 14, a 15, and a 16 off of that estate to bring to you today. So Jeff, let's talk some Chardonnay.
Let's do it. It's a fun little treat to taste the vertical of the Chardonnays. The goal of this program is to highlight the historic Stanley Ranch, really try to get the most out of each vintage that can possibly be gotten. So this is the pinnacle for the Chardonnay program for Starmont, the single vineyard. As far as winemaking goes, I approach it pretty similarly, just trying to kind of once again just highlight the differences in the vintage, but try to maintain some continuity between the vintages. That being said, I am a winemaker, so I do like to mess around a little bit and and change things up. So 14, sure. Pretty straightforward, just whole cluster press. You know, the grapes were harvested at night, nice and cool, brought into the winery, pressed on a gentle cycle in the bladder press, and the free run was taken off of this and only used for this program. Fermented in barrel, so 100% French oak. In 14, it was about a third new. But the coopers that I chose for this program, a little more restrained, a little more lighter toast. So I'm not trying to get too much aromatics from the barrel. The
sure.
fruit is already so aromatic right. and giving that it's more just kind of trying to add a little structure to the palate with the use of the kind of lighter toasted French oak barrels. The 14 was native, primary and secondary fermentation, so long fermentation, trying to coax out some complexity in barrel for about 10 months before blended, and then back down to barrel for sure. another 8 months, so 18 months in barrel total to kind of really try to bring things together, extract the nice, gentle, slow extraction of the oak.
So this to me right now is drinking really, really well. It's got some age to it, yep. So it's got a little bit more of those kind of like bruised apple tertiary flavors, yep. But I still get a ton of bracing acidity to this wine. What I love about these Starmont Chards is that I think for people that are more familiar with Up Valley Napa Chardonnays, where they're big and cloying and super heavy and rich and buttery, this is almost the antithesis of that to some degree, where it has this vibrancy and this bracing acidity, but it still has that unctuous mid palate that you're really attracted to. It's more akin to like white Burgundy stylistically, but at the same time definitely has like that Napa fingerprint. Yeah. I almost said footprint because we stomp grapes with our feet. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's a great point though. The Stanley Ranch down in Carneros, maritime influence, so you get some nice cool climate type of influence on the grape growing. But at the same time, it is still California, so it does still get ripe. And this particular block that I get the Stanley Ranch estate off of is, we know it for being able to get physiologically ripe, but still maintain really bright acidity.
That's awesome.
So able to maintain a seriousness to the wine, but still picking at the right time in order to get the acidity. You don't have to pick early. You can pick when it's ready and still naturally maintain the acidity. Sure. And I think that that really shows through. 14 was a very nice growing season, long, and the Chardonnays did well. 15. Another interesting vintage. So 2015 was the culmination of many years of drought in Napa, right. And the effect that it had on the grapes in 2015 was a small crop. So very concentrated, small clusters. Not a lot of juice to the berries. Low berry weight. So very concentrated of that vintage. So once again, you get that. This one's even more rich.
Dude, this wine is amazing. I have to say this is phenomenal.
This one's even more rich than the 14. I did use a little higher percentage of new oak in 15 just because I felt like the vintage could handle it.
Yeah, totally.
So about a little less than 50% new oak on this one. Still native primary and secondary fermentation, really long fermentation, 2015. Took almost 9 months to get it done. You
feel like the depth, it's a little more complex. It's got more kind of substance to it, which I think 15 concentrated fruit, a little bit more new oak, which makes tons of sense. It's singing right now. This is in a beautiful, beautiful place. I love it.
Definitely a bit more decadent
for sure
than the 14. So depending on kind of how you like your Chardonnay stylistically,
right.
I could see a case for both 14 or 15.
The common thread is there, though. I mean, you can definitely, the DNA.
But and that common thread for me with this wine is the acidity. Though you get that decadence of the vintage, you still get that bright acidity. Mouth watering, makes you want to have another sip. Goes great by itself, but
another
also
sip,
pairs
another
well
bottle, another 3-pack, whatever you decide. I do have to say, like to your point about acidity, these wines I think are phenomenal right now on their own. We haven't even got to the last one, but great food wines.
Yeah,
like for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, the salinity of it's present. I love everything about it.
Yeah,
it's super good.
Seafood kind of naturally, oysters especially, just kind of try to draw out that salinity of the kind of minerality, salinity, the kind of crushed oyster shell type of notes. But
totally.
It's fun to taste them side by side. It's been a while since I've done it.
We should do this every week. I don't know why
well, I think we should get that started. But like I said, pretty similar approach, 14, 15. And 16, I started playing around a little bit. So in 2016, I introduced cultured yeasts, where 14, 15 were only native. I started using some cultured yeast in 16 just to try to get a little bit more purity, maintain a little more purity, and try to coax out a little more kind of minerality from the fruit that I know is there, and also a little different lees management. So in 14 and 15, I would press and then go to tank, settle, and then go into the barrels. Right. Not on the heavy lees. In 16, I went directly from the press into some barrels and fermented with no batonnage, with no lees
going dirty.
And fermented like that, and left it in those barrels. Didn't rack those barrels at all for the whole 18 months. Awesome. And then kind of blended back some of the other ones that was a little more traditional in the way that I was doing the 14s and 15s.
It's interesting because I feel like the 16 is almost like a synthesis of these two other wines, but at the same time, to your point about the minerality, I feel like the finish on the 16 might be a bit longer, a little bit more refined and precise than I think the two previous wines, but at the same time, that common thread is still there. Like it's super delicious. It's light on its feet, but at the same time, it's definitely like it's got a core to it that is unctuous and rich and everything you want in a Chardonnay. It's gorgeous wine.
Still drinking very fresh at this point, 2016. I mean, for a wine that's for a Chardonnay that's 5 years old, I would not get that blind. If someone put that on the table and said, guess the vintage, I would not guess that. Not as much tertiary notes like you were talking about with the 14, the kind of honeysuckle type type notes that you start to get, kind of maybe some dried fruits, dried apricot with the 15, and then even some honeycomb. And then, yeah, the 16 still fresh and fruity and
it's great.
vibrant, and all of them are drinking very well. You know, this is one of the things people ask all the time, you know, oh, when should I drink this wine? What is the drinking window for this? And although I definitely will have some recommendations for different wines, also at the same time, I do feel like that is a personal decision as well.
For sure.
And that's one of the first things that I ask when somebody asks me that is, how do you like your wines? Do you like your wines fresh and young and fruity and vibrant?
Right.
Then drink them young. And because common misconception of wine is, if it's old, it's better.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case. Some wines are meant to be consumed young.
For sure.
And that's what the goal of the program is. And laying it down doesn't necessarily make it better. And for Chardonnays like this, do you like your wines a little fresher? Go with the 16. If you want some depth of flavor in those kind of tertiary notes, the 14 and 15 are drinking great right now. And if you like that, get the 16 and lay it down and drink the 14 now and 16 later.
I personally recommend everybody buys everything because this vertical is amazing and it's really interesting to see them side by side.
Yeah.
And I think they're all in a great spot now, but to Jeff's point, depends on what you like, but I like all of them, so I recommend them all. StarmontWines.com, and yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers.